to our panelists. Today joining us on the show, we have Commodore Ajay Singh, a submarine veteran. We also have Manan Bhatt, who's a Navy veteran. I'm going to come across to you first, Commodore Singh. What can you tell us about these research ships that China has sent very, very close to India? The timing is very suspect, but what can it really be used for?
Firstly, thank you for having me on your show. You know, these Chinese vessels are indeed a cause for concern because under the garb of research, we all know what their actual activities are, as you very, very aptly described. And they've been a regular feature in the Indian Ocean for the last 3 or 4 years. Yes, Sri Lanka had banned their presence for 1 year, but that was only in Sri Lankan ports. So it is not essential that these ships really have to enter Sri Lanka. They can still circumvent Sri Lanka and come and operate in the Indian Ocean. You would also recall that a couple of years ago, I think it was 2021, India had raised suspicions about another research ship which was prowling around near Indian waters, and it was asked to return back, and it did. So obviously there is no, they do not want to show any hostile intent, even though these vessels are primarily carrying out work which will benefit the PLA Navy to quite an extent. They're basically civilian ships, as their white hulls will show. They're not grey hulls, they're not warships, but they are dual-use ships. So yes, on paper, they are carrying out oceanographic research, which they are fully entitled to do anywhere in the world. I mean, no one can stop you from doing it in the high seas. But the fact that they would, as far as we are concerned from a security perspective, what worries us is that they would be, besides the telemetric data of missile firings and all, that's one aspect of it. I think we should be more concerned about what they're doing in the underwater domain, as again you brought out very clearly. Because the underwater domain is still something that is fairly opaque. Unlike the surface of the oceans, which has now become fairly transparent with satellites and unmanned aerial vehicles and long-range maritime patrol aircraft, but what happens below the surface of the sea is still fairly opaque. And hydrology is something that is quite different from the above water environment. It changes by the day, by the hour, depending on the temperature of the water, depending on the pressure that you're operating at, the salinity of the water, everything. So you could have a vastly different hydrographic profile many times during the same day in the same region. So that's the kind of importance of therefore understanding what this actually, so you have to collect as much data as you can, whenever you can, so that you can analyze and then make a sort of a pattern and say, well, if a submarine were to come and operate in these waters, let's say in the in mid-May, this is the kind of hydrology she would expect. And if this is the kind of hydrology she would expect, her acoustic signature would be available to ships over so much range. That can be calculated. So you know, whether a submarine should hide, whether a submarine should go in for attack, what is the ideal depth the submarine should operate at, all this is very important information. Absolutely. So if China, not if China, but when China decides to operate submarines on a regular basis in the Indian Ocean and the Bay of Bengal, this data would be very important to them, collected over a period of years, because the more data you collect, the better is your analysis, the better is the kind of information you can provide to your platforms. So I think from that perspective, it is worrisome. Now, the Bay of Bengal specifically, this used to be, you know, so far we were never contested in the Bay of Bengal as the Indian Navy. There was no other Navy really which would contest the Indian Navy's dominance of the Bay of Bengal. Absolutely. The Chinese now are making major inroads into the Bay of Bengal, particularly from a submarine perspective. They have given 2 submarines to Bangladesh in 2017 and 19, and have built a submarine base in Bangladesh called the BNS Sheikh Hasina, which can accommodate up to 6 submarines. Now, Bangladesh has only 2, and Bangladesh, for the size of its navy, is not going to have 6 for a long time to come. So what exactly is the purpose of this base? It is because it is manned by the Chinese. It has got Chinese equipment because these submarines are Chinese. So tomorrow, if China were to operate submarines in the Bay of Bengal, they would have a base where they could perhaps, I don't know whether that sort of arrangement exists with Bangladesh or not. It could, even if it doesn't exist today, it could be, you know, agreed to in the future that they could use the Bangladeshi naval base to replenish their submarines, to service their submarines, and then there would be a regular presence in the Bay of Bengal. One of the biggest challenges that China has about operating submarines in the Indian Ocean is the distance from China. If that distance can be circumvented by providing them bases in the
That's a very important point that you have made. That's a very important point. Let me take that across to Manan Bhatt. As the Commodore very articulately explained to us how dangerous a spy ship in India's underwater backyard could be, you must explain to us, are we really in a time when we need to hit the panic button? Because let's face it, Bangladesh has been cozying up to China. Sri Lanka has allowed that lease to lapse. That was supposed to ensure that there is a ban on Chinese ships to dock in Sri Lankan ports. That lease has also now lapsed. You have the two nations who are our neighbors cozying up to China. China is geographically very far away, but can ships like this help circumvent all of it?
Definitely, Meghna. Thank you for having me here. As Commodore sir has rightly said, China is putting up pressure on India and Indian naval vessels by continuously operating their submarines, which are not found in AIS, and these ships. This particular Shenyang Hong 3, it has a habit of switching off its AIS, which helps the IFC IOR, Indian Navy's IFC IOR center to locate it and locate its movement, or one can locate them through an independent satellite also. But they have a habit, these Chinese spy ships. They switch off their AIS and they operate in mostly in Indian Ocean region. They have 13 ships of such kind, out of which few of them are with PLA Navy, and few are with their space research this wing of their forces, which is also used for tracking our satellites.
This is in the Bay of Bengal itself. Which region are you talking about, the 13 ships?
Entire, no, they have a total of 13 ships.
Total of, okay.
Out of which, yeah,
3 of these are the
13,
suspected spy ships as well.
Yeah, they call these spy ships as research ship, but all over the world, they have they can snoop in multiple domains. They can snoop in space, so that they can track satellites. They can snoop in air. They can track our Netra. The jets which are guiding the other aircrafts. They can snoop in our snoop under the sea, so that they have the knowledge about our acoustic signatures of our submarines. They can also snoop on the surface, so that they can track the radar data, the radar signatures of our ships. So India has in fact in the past also raised up with Sri Lanka, so that they should not dock them, allow them to dock in Sri Lanka. But Chinese have been coming again and again, as you said, that is it the time to press a panic button? No, India is also investing heavily in its new research vessels, and India has 1 or 2 research vessels already stationed. When it comes to Operation Sindoor, and the presence of Chinese vessel, this particular Chinese vessel, which suddenly appeared in the IOR near Sri Lanka on 13th and 14th, it means there are experts which are saying that it must have been moving somewhere around and tracking Indian Indian submarine, our nuclear sub Ariane's movements, or maybe our carrier strike, which was already going aggressive against Pakistan, and sending the data of Indian naval movements directly.
You're absolutely right. The timing is such, the chronology is such. That was a time when Indian Navy was on high alert. There was a lot of movement. We heard that there were certain parts of the fleet which was there in the Bay of Bengal was actually being moved towards the west as well, when the Indian Navy had gone into attacking positions. These are just details. I cannot, of course, corroborate. It is what we have picked up through open reports. But if all of that movement was happening, imagine how much China could possibly benefit. The Chinese Navy could possibly benefit by having a spy in the Indian Ocean. Is this ship one of the spy ships? Is this ship being used by China to spy upon Indian Navy to find out what's below the surface? That's the question, which is why the Indian government is keeping a very close eye on the spy ship of China, which seems to be creeping closer to India every day. And Commodore Singh, thank you so much for joining us, as well as Manan Bhatt. The two of you really have explained it to us very well as to how dangerous an unmanned underwater vehicle could be for the Indian navies as well.